Today, as we walk with Jesus on this Saturday, the 19th of September, we are going to be walking with Jesus through a grain field on a Sabbath, a Saturday. And his disciples are going to be plucking the heads of the wheat, and they're going to be rubbing it between their hands, threshing it, and then they're going to be popping it in their mouths and eating it for sustenance sake. And the Pharisees are going to be upset because they're violating the laws of the Sabbath. And it's really important that we stop here for a moment and that we remember that Jesus did not sin. He did not break the will of God. He did not break the law of God. He was in perfect harmony with God in all things at all times. And so when he is accused by the Pharisees of doing something illegal, we know from our privileged perspective after the resurrection that he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing something different than what they expected. Again, something new, something that was out of alignment with what they thought, but it wasn't wrong. So we're at Luke chapter 6, verse 1, and we are told that on a Sabbath, while he was going through the grain fields, his disciples plucked and ate some heads of grain, rubbing them in their hands. But some of the Pharisees said, "Why are you doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath?" And Jesus answered them in a way that I wish he hadn't, but he did. He said, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and took and ate the bread of presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat. And he also gave it to those with him. And then Jesus said to them, the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath." I don't like Jesus' explanation to the Pharisees because it sounds like, okay, I'm going to rationalize what I'm doing by looking at a disobedient act that someone else did. But I think there's something a little bit bigger here. What David did was actually breaking the law. God had told the Israelites that the bread of the presence was only to be eaten by the priests. What the disciples are doing, on the other hand, is a violation of all of the prescriptions that had been drawn around the law that says that you are to honor the Sabbath, to remember the Sabbath, to keep it holy, and you're not to do any work on the Sabbath. And so the Pharisees had created a lot of prescriptions, a lot of ways to make sure that you wouldn't break the Sabbath law. They defined what work was, and they defined it ad nauseum. How far you could walk, what you were allowed to do in terms of meals, everything. And so the disciples were harvesting and threshing and eating, which under the Pharisaic notion was violation of the law. They were working, which they clearly weren't. They were walking through and they were hungry and they were eating a little something. And one of the things that it doesn't say it in this passage, it's in Mark, that, the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Here we have the Son of Man as the Lord of the Sabbath, and Jesus, the Son of Man, is there, and he doesn't have a problem with it. So get over yourselves, Pharisees. Also, I think in bringing this illustration to us about David and his men and them actually breaking the law, I think one of the things that Jesus is pointing to, and it's going to be elucidated a little bit more in the following passage, is that man, humanity, your brother, your sister, Their needs are really important, and you're not supposed to construe your religious thinking and your laws in a way that does harm to your neighbor, that in a way that denies them that which they need, physical sustenance. David and his men were famished. They were running, they were hunted, they were pursued, and they were in need of food. The only food available was the bread of the presence, and they took it and they ate it, and God did not punish them, which God could have. God did not punish them, and David himself is called a man after God's own heart. So the point here seems to be that human relationships and human needs have precedence over any construction or construal of law. We have to be careful with this. We don't want to justify. We human beings are really good at justifying all kinds of things. But it seems pretty clear here that when we follow the law of love, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself, we're not going to deprive our brothers, our neighbors, of physical sustenance just because it happens to be a holy day. As you go through life, walking with Jesus, I would encourage you to be careful how you construe your understanding of what God's law says. We all have a tendency to apply our understanding of God's word, God's law, God's teaching, to apply that and to put that on others, when in reality, that may not be theirs to bear. And so be really careful that you don't, as Jesus says in another way, tie up huge weights and burdens and lay them on those around you. That's what the Pharisees were accused of doing. Let's not do that. Let's operate in love and freedom, following the Son of Man, who is the Lord of the Sabbath. He's the Lord of all things. So let's submit to him and to his law. And his law is the law of love. That love trumps everything else. Not love that's wishy-washy and emotional sentimentalism, but real love. Doing what's in the best interest of the other, regardless of cost to self. That level of love trumps everything else. And so just bear that in mind as you go through your day today.